Mrs. Kate Simmons has served the state of Alabama for the past 50 years. Miss Kate, as she's known around the Capitol, has served in the governor's office for 49 of those 50 years. Recently, her fellow workers honored her with an open house at the Capitol. On hand were many of her old friends and an ex-governor or two. During the festivities, George Mitchell talked with Miss Kate about her years on the Hill.
Does anybody ever call you anything but Miss Kate?
Call me Kate.
Call you Kate?
Sevilla. No, that's my name is Sevilla.
You have seen many, many people come through that door that faces your desk. How about recalling a lot of the people that you have seen come through those doors that you've had face-to-face chats with?
Well, I really don't know offhand. If I had time to think of them, I could. Well, the Kennedys were here, and who I ran for president that I was the presidential elector in 1958. Who was?
Oh, dear.
Oh, see, now you can't remember either. Now you can understand why I can't remember them.
Now, you've seen a lot out here on Capitol Hill for 50 years. Can you kind of look back on 50 years and pinpoint some of the things that stand out on a day?
No, I don't believe I've got time to think of all that. But it's been a wonderful 50 years for me. I've enjoyed every bit of it, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy my 10 years of service with the incoming governor.
What type of duties are you involved in as far as the governors are concerned? Do you just kind of teach them the ropes somewhat, or what?
Well, we try to when we come in. Everyone knows supposed to have special duties, and so we try to outline the programs when the governors come in as to who's going to handle what kind of the letters, and who's going to answer like pardon and parole, who's going to answer for pensions and security. And so we try to get them broke in pretty good.
You handle some of the governor's budget matters, is that correct?
I have to keep books on all the funds, the office fund, and of course the emergency, contingency, and the coastal mansion. And then I used to make out the budgets, but the foots have got so computerized until I'm disgusted with it. Now, I'm ready for them to get rid of computers.
Some of your predecessors who sat at this desk have gone into politics. Has politics ever interested you?
None whatsoever. I enjoy working with them, but I don't go to political rallies, and I'm not politically minded to run for anything. I never have been. I just enjoy working with the ones that are elected.
You came in here from the Revenue Department, I believe. What day did you start serving here in this office?
In January 1930. See, I came in December 28, and I worked a year in the Revenue Department when Henry Long was Commissioner of Revenue. And then I came down here. I reckon the reason I was selected because you remember when they used to give all those Christmas paroles, and I came down here and helped them write out those parole orders. So maybe that's the reason they decided maybe I'd make a good worker.
I see. Go ahead.
I said it has been enjoyable years, and I'm sure I'm going to find it continue so.
So you're at the age of retirement, but you're not going to retire. You're going to stay on and...
I'll stay on as long as they'll let me.
As long as they let you. There you go. You met with some of the former governors today. Anything outstanding transpire in your conversations?
No, we just kind of reminisce about old times and glad to see each other. They were, let's see, Governor Patterson, Governor Folsom, Governor Beasley, and that was all, and Governor Wallace, of course.
Governor George Wallace put it very well indeed when he expressed the sentiments, governors come and go, but Miss Kate stays on forever. And forever she hopes to stay. After all, she says, what would I do? For George Mitchell, this is Dennis Latham for Alabama Illustrated. Attorneys for Alabama Power Company, the Public Service Commission, the Attorney General's Office, and Legal Services gathered here today in Judge Phelps' courtroom for a conference to talk about issues to to try to find out where they are in the Alabama Power Company rate case. Carl Evans, the administrative law judge and legal representative for the Public Service Commission, says the issues boil down to just a couple of things.
One, the threshold question, which court has jurisdiction. Number two, once it's determined which court has jurisdiction, the Circuit Court or the Supreme Court, the ultimate question is the order of the Commission legal or is the order void?
What about the temporary restraining order?
As I see it, regardless of any preliminary matters or collateral matters, it still boils down to the same questions.
The rate increase granted Alabama Power Company by the Public Service Commission in November lies between the jurisdiction of two courts, that of the state Supreme Court and the Montgomery County Circuit Court. The resolution of this jurisdiction problem is the first major block in determining whether the actual increase was warranted or not. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Montgomery County Courthouse.
Well, Dennis, what I would like to do is to offer a bill to the legislature that would keep any commission from here on out ever making rates that would be due on bills that were due at a certain time, but instead would be on service rendered after a date. This is where we have run into a great deal of confusion in the recent case with Alabama Power Company. I have looked at some of the legislation in other states and found that it has been passed, and I believe that it would be good legislation for the state of Alabama. It would not matter where it was the power company or some other utility, but it would be the same for all. And I would certainly hope that that I could get somebody to introduce the legislation and get it passed, and then we would never have this problem again of a rate being imposed on service that had already been used. When we buy a commodity in the store, we like to know what we're paying for it, and I think that the people should know what they're paying for a kilowatt of electricity or a cubic foot of gas before they actually use it.
Commissioner Ziegler, you have called on the power company to refund the money they've collected over those 6 days. Why?
I think this is the only way to end the confusion and get things back on an even keel. You've got over 230,000 customers of Alabama Power Company who received a bill during that period of the temporary surcharge. Those people don't know whether to go ahead and pay the bill in full or whether to wait until the court litigation ends or whether to knock 25% off and then pay the bill. I've heard of some people doing each of those three things. And I think in all fairness, and because of the discrepancies in the billing practices during that period, that Alabama Power Company should voluntarily give back that $3 million.
Have you heard anything from Alabama Power Company officials about your request?
There's been no reply as yet. I kind of expect to get one sometime Friday.
While there is a need for updating our 1901 Constitution, we must not let that effort undo the trust fund. A few politicians are now saying if we make education an essential function of state government, then there will be no need to continue earmarking school funds. We may need a new Constitution, but not that badly, in my opinion. I urge you to go on record, however, one way or the other on this resolution so that if the issue gets hot, we'll know where the membership stands. Should you choose to avoid the issue and not take it up, then, in my judgment, it will become a signal for unearmarking to proceed and for politicians to begin to dissolve the trust fund.
As the spirit of Christmas creep over the woods, with a broken wing lying under the tree. They're all gathered around.
The Ethics Commission, meeting amid speculation it would look into a controversy surrounding two members of the State Board of Corrections, instead directed its public attention to other matters. It voted 3-1 that a prospective state highway director would have to resign from some job-related positions to avoid a conflict of interest. Governor-elect Fob James is seeking the services of Dr. Rex Rainier, head of Auburn University's Civil Engineering Department, to be his highway director. Rainier appeared before the commission and learned what would be required of him to accept an offer from the governor-elect.
He wanted us to rule on two questions: his connections with a consulting firm which has done magnificent work in the area of wastewater and water treatment plants, and secondly, whether or not he could continue to serve capably and admirably as a member of the Board of Registration of Engineers and Land Surveyors. And unfortunately, the opinion of the commission was that he should drop his membership on that very fine board, and that he should sever connections with the consulting firm for that time in which he serves as highway director. However, I do not believe Dr. Rainier has made a definite decision, but if he does, you notice, George, he came to us in advance of any possible problems, and that's good. That's good.
Rainier told the commission he did not see a conflict of interest in remaining on the registration board, and he is undecided about accepting an appointment as highway director. In other matters before the commission, Tuskegee Mayor Johnny Ford failed to accept an invitation to appear and air his complaint against an employee of the state auditor's office. Ford has charged that Robert Harton lied about handling a recent state audit of the city. The commission ruled that Harton had not violated the ethics law, but if Ford can provide proof, the commission would pursue it further. Harton had little to say to the commission.
The only thing I can say is my statement is contained in this dossier that I flatly deny any of the charges.
The commission will look farther into allegations by the Fox Hunters Association that conservation enforcement personnel are using state equipment on state time to trap animals for personal gain. Conservation people contend they should be able to trap on their own time. Their attorney, Bobby Black, asked that there be clarification of laws which govern game wardens. The commission agreed to set up a meeting with all parties concerned and clarify any questions raised. George Mitchell, WSFA TV News.
Whether we supported him or not, he's the governor of this state now, and he's the governor for all of the citizens of this state. And for him to do that, I mean, it's sad, it's pitiful, really.
Has Mr. James told you directly, or the Black Caucus, that he would not meet with you?
The Black Caucus asked me to make a request to the governor.
Have you talked to him personally?
No, you make the request through the governor's executive secretary, who's the liaison between the governor and the public, and that's Dr. Foy. I called Dr. Foy on last Thursday and made the request to Dr. Foy. Dr. Foy said he would see the governor over the weekend, and he would get in contact with me in the beginning of the week. And yesterday evening, about 5 o'clock, he gave me a call to relay the message that Governor James has sent to us, that he would not meet with the Legislative Black Caucus. He said he doesn't meet with no white caucus, and he's not going to meet with a black caucus.
That's what Mr. James told Mr. Foy.
Yeah, that's what Dr. Foy relayed to me yesterday. Ain't no such thing as a white caucus. And he meet with the white members of the legislature every day. He meeting with Rick Manley, Joe McCorkadale, and all the other members of the legislature every day, planning the legislative activities for this coming session.
Fruit growers in the state should be happy for the recent cold weather, because it is the cold conditions that enable fruit trees such as peaches, pears, and apples to produce fruit. Adri Bryan of the County Extension Service says a certain number of hours are needed of freezing weather in order to produce new growth in the spring.
Well, it's the chilling temperatures that we need to break the dominance to give us a good crop of fruit the next year on certain fruit trees like peaches, apple trees, and plum trees, you see. And this will mean that they'll have a good crop if they get the number of chilling hours. And peaches require, some of them, 650 to 950 in the Montgomery area. Apples require about 9 to 1,000, and plums from 6 to 750 hours of chilling temperature. This
is a peach tree here. What is the part that's affected? What part is?
Well, it's the chilling temperature on these buds here, that's going to come out and blossom next spring and make a fruit. That's what we are talking about, where it really affects it, you see.
What effect would it have if they did not get enough chilling hours?
Well, the effect of it, you wouldn't, the crop wouldn't be as is prolific. If they didn't get the chilling hours, in fact, they need this in order to have a good crop of fruit.
Bryant says so far Alabama fruit trees are behind in the number of hours needed to produce the spring growth. He said as far as the fruit is concerned, they're hoping for a cool January. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
An awful lot of people involved anytime you win and contribute, but the players still do the winning. And I know they were very disappointed last year when they thought they should have had it, and I'm mighty happy today.
The entire university community joins me in congratulating Coach Bryant, his staff, the members of the 1978 Crimson Tide football team on a monumental accomplishment. We're proud that they did it, but we're especially proud of the way they did it, through special dedication, great courage in the face of adversity, and a fine display of sportsmanship and class.
If you had to win just one, which would you take?
AP.
Why is that, Coach?
Well, there's more of them to start with, and I don't know which has been going the longest. I think you take it more seriously. Take me, for instance, I'm on UP. I don't pay a whole great deal of attention to it until the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. Charlie asked me who I want to vote for, and that's about the way to go.
Did you notice the vote from the sections? All areas of the country voted Alabama ahead, except the West, as you might expect in the AP poll. Was that good news to you?
Well, it doesn't matter to me anyway. As long as we got one who won it, I'm just happy for the players. Me, heck, that's nothing. The players, they showed they had a lot of class, a lot of pride, and they worked awfully hard for it.
What is the? Can't you celebrate one day? What are you landing here in Montgomery at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Coach?
Well, I'm working what I'm supposed to be doing. I should have been doing it yesterday.
I thought maybe you could at least take one day off.
Well, I will one of these days.
Coach, one other question. Do you have any idea why 15 coaches of the 35 would vote for Southern Cal?
Well, they must have thought Southern Cal was the best team. And they beat us. They were the best team that day. I think...
Do you think that play, that questionable play when Southern Cal scored the winning touchdown may have had something to do with the vote?
I don't have any idea.
Well, glad to have you in town.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here. I'm real happy for the players.
You're here to sign a player
assistant
tonight.
coaches. That's what I don't consider that any of your business.
You've been telling people that lately. Thank you.
Who knows it?
Delegates from all over Alabama came to the Montgomery Civic Center for the opening session of the conference. Governor George Wallace opened the three-day event with brief remarks and some praise for the library workers in the state.
Since I became the governor, we find now that around 8 million volumes are accessible to the 700,000 school children in our state. Around 1 million volumes in, I believe, the junior colleges and trade schools. This is a far cry from what existed a decade or so ago. We find today that library service is available, I believe, to 97% of our people. And I want to congratulate all of you out here today because you're the ones that have made that possible over the long run.
The director of the Alabama Public Library Service, Anthony Mealy, says this conference is part of a national movement leading up to a national conference called by President Carter for this October.
This is our turn to get the people of Alabama together and try to determine exactly what they want in their libraries. You know, what do we have and what don't we have and what do they want that we don't have and so forth. It's a conference that consists mostly of lay people though, and usually when you have library conferences they're mostly librarians. But this one has 2/3 of the ordinary everyday citizen, only 1/3 librarians. So we truly will be speaking to the people who are using the libraries so we can determine what they want and what they want us to provide them instead of what we want to tell them what they should have, you know.
A feature of the conference is the Model Library exhibit. This spotlights various methods, both old and new, that deal with getting information out of the public library and into the hands of the people. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Montgomery Civic Center.
A circuit judge ruled Friday in favor of the legislative plan. Attorney Morris Dees thinks a higher court will decide otherwise. Tomorrow, he says he'll file his appeal.
The basis for the appeal is to ask the Alabama Supreme Court to overturn the ruling of Judge Taylor based on the fact that the plan put through the legislature by Alvin Holmes was not advertised according to the law of Alabama. It was passed through the legislature without giving the public adequate legal notice to complain about the plan and to point out the defects that plan contains.
What do you think are the defects?
The defects are that it requires Montgomery County to create 5 new districts in the county for the election of county commissioners when Montgomery County already has 5 districts for the election of county legislators or men and women to the Alabama State Legislature. It's very simple for Montgomery County to use its existing 5 legislative districts for the county commission. These 5 districts comprise presently of 3 white and 2 black legislators, and it would be easy to see that you'd have 2 black county commissioners elected from the same 5 districts. This would be cheap for the county and it would be simple for the voters to understand.
Federal Judge Frank Johnson Jr. has ordered that the redistricting plans be submitted to him for review by May 15th. If Dees wins his appeal, he says Judge Johnson won't be able to review the legislative plan. That would give his plan a greater chance of being carried out. But whatever the outcome, the final plan will be decided by the federal court. Glenda Webb, WSFA TV News.
Well, as you know, the power company had filed emergency rates and a new schedule of rates, and we suspended them for 6 months without setting a hearing date. I think that the new commissioners need certainly ample time to study the evidence that we've had before us now for 18 months. And in my judgment, it would certainly be unfair for the commission as presently made up to expect the new commission to make a decision shortly after they come into office. So after the 15th of January, maybe the end of January, we will have a commission meeting and make a determination when we will begin hearings on this case. Janet, I would imagine that it will be March and maybe April before we can even begin hearings on the case.
What was Alabama Power Company's reaction to this?
Well, certainly they're not happy about it. They would have liked for us to have gone ahead and given them some emergency rates at this particular time, but I feel like that the case is in the Supreme Court, and that's where the legislature had passed a bill that all of the appeals go to the Supreme Court, and I feel like the matter right now is in their hands.
Montgomery, in a visit to the office of Mayor Emery Fulmer, was one stop on an extended agenda Alabama's senior senator has planned for the months ahead. Senator Donald Stewart said he expects to be in Alabama 3 weekends out of each month to learn about problems facing local governments. That effort, he said, will carry him to all 67 counties. Stewart said he learned there are at least 3 areas where he can help Montgomery.
Here, it took the form of certain specific programs that the mayor was interested in, the renovation of the old railroad station down here, and a drainage problem that existed in a certain part of the city, and some problems, perhaps, not any real serious ones, but perhaps some problems that might occur in the future with the air command facility here, the educational facility.
How much do you find a problem relative to the snow belt versus sun belt states?
Well, I think that's a serious problem. I don't think there's any question about that. I think there's going to be a concentrated effort by the northeastern states to rewrite a lot of the federal formulas and funding formulas, to write in some of the inequities that now exist, and to also write in others. And I think that's a very serious problem, and I'm going to be working with other young Southern senators who moved to Washington now and are representing their states on trying to form a caucus of young Southerners to hold that kind of thing off, and to even do better than that, to rewrite some of the formulas so that they're at least more equitable than they are now.
Are you getting input from local governments relative to this matter?
Exactly right. I plan to have some of them actually come up in the long run and testify about that. And that's one of the reasons, George, I'm stressing rural development now at the national level, because I think some of the people in the northeastern part of the country fail to realize that where some of the big urban communities and urban centers have their problem, or at least where it started, was in the rural areas of this country.
Stewart said he will use his 5 offices in Alabama to keep in close touch with the state. George Mitchell, WSFA TV News.
Well, certainly, I think that's a tradition, and
Montgomery Mayor Emery Fulmer made a short but sharp plea for the passage of an annexation question to be put before the voters on the 23rd of this month in the county. Fulmer made the comments to a local Montgomery Civic Club, telling them that the voters' acceptance of the issue will be vital to continued orderly growth for the city. In the past, Fulmer says with the exception of one annexation in 1927, all such issues have been completed without much forethought of future growth, but such is not the case in this annexation issue.
Since that time, all of the annexations, as you can see, a little dab here, a little dab there, no reason, no rhyme whatsoever. You see such ludicrous situations as one street in East Montgomery, bounded on all 4 sides by the city of Montgomery, yet outside the city limits. You see such things as property inside the eastern bypass, outside the city limits. Property outside the eastern bypass, in the city limits.
Fulmer cited 4 main reasons why he is pushing for this annexation, the main one being the retention of the city's population, which is now moving into the suburbs. Fulmer says these people who now live outside city limits have no municipal voting rights. They are disenfranchised and cannot serve on local boards. Additional reasons include the need for unified control over water drainage and control over police and fire activity. Fulmer says the votes will be counted in 4 segments, the 3 segments under consideration, a western segment, a southern segment, an eastern segment, and the 4th being the entire city of Montgomery and the portion of the county that is not being annexed. Votes will be counted in each of the 3 segments, and they'll be counted only if the combined city-county vote ratifies the issue. Then each segment will be able to vote on its own merits. The annexation move will bring some 18,600 people into the city limits, and Fulmer predicts within 5 years will net the city nearly $1 million a year. The annexation, if approved, will take effect the 1st of 1980. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
I wish I knew how to make yours now. I feel obligated all of a sudden. I might warn you before I start that there is a guard dog behind that curtain who is trained to attack if you do not laugh. Bruno? Gonna be